Welcome to the Sharing Hope broadcast with Patrick Smith. I'm the Learning and Leadership Development Manager at Christian Care Ministry, and I'm joined today by a close friend and colleague, Christopher Robinson, who I've had the privilege of working with for the past several years. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Absolutely. We are very happy to have this opportunity to share some hope with each of you in an area that is very near and dear to our hearts. So Christopher and I both work in the learning and development team at Christian Care Ministry, where we have the opportunity to develop internal employees and help folks with career development planning. And we understand that during this time of COVID-19, there has been a drastic shift in the landscape. Chris, what are some of the things that, from your experience, you've run into, some of the conversations you're having?
Yeah, so some of the conversations I've had, Patrick, with this is that people have lost jobs. That have been infected by the virus. The recovery, that process has been very hard on families. But the people who have lost jobs and trying to figure out how they're going to put food on the table and keep a roof over their head has been a challenge, an insurmountable challenge in some circumstances. So a lot of people are having to find ways to reinvent themselves right now due to COVID-19 and the loss of income and the loss of jobs.
I'm hearing a lot of the same things with the folks that I'm interacting with. Thankfully, I haven't spoken to any coworkers of ours that have been directly impacted by the virus, but I have definitely spoken to numerous folks that either family or close friends have, gone through and experienced it. And I know that it can be absolutely devastating. So, first and foremost, our hearts go out to those that are experiencing that at this time. We know that certain areas have been just drastically impacted. And our hope today is through our conversation to be able to maybe give some hope in a way that provides guidance and just a couple of guys' thoughts on how we're able to maybe navigate the professional arena during this time. The landscape has changed. And the very fact that Chris and I aren't sitting in the same room doing this like we would most likely otherwise, but we're both in our home offices and being adaptable here. And probably most folks that are watching this right now, it's a similar situation for you. And maybe you're not at a home office. Maybe your work didn't have continuity during this time. So, Chris, what kind of thoughts do you have that maybe we could kick off and share for some folks that are furloughed or have been, put on leave during this pandemic? Any recommendations those folks can do to make the most of that time at home?
I was, and I'm glad you asked that question, Patrick. I think one of the tools that I think a lot of people might want to do more with as far as leveraging, and that would be LinkedIn, their LinkedIn profile and taking a look at that, but also getting on LinkedIn Learning. I think LinkedIn Learning has a lot of different learning platforms in which people can begin to reinvent themselves. And so I've walked a couple of clients through some of the learning opportunities that are available on LinkedIn Learning. And it has been very fruitful. A lot of people have been very excited about the opportunity to go through and see what some of those sessions offer to improve some of their skill sets and perhaps learn even new skills that will make them more marketable in the workplace. Because right now, they're in a desperate need to find employment. And for some folks that I've had the opportunity to talk with regarding this, and LinkedIn Learning, I think, is a great platform in order for folks to pick up those additional skill sets in order to take it to that next level and see how that can indeed increase their LinkedIn profile and their brand overall.
Absolutely. Another resource very similar to that I've used personally is Udemy or Udemy, depending on how someone chooses to say it. And that resource offers, a lot of times they run great sales that give you maybe $8, $10 for, a course that will teach you coding skills or a lot of computer-based learning. They even have things like introductory certifications in coaching, soft skills, a lot of leadership abilities. And, of course, that's very near and dear to our heart, given, our day-to-day work is helping coach people through their leadership journey. Whether it's LinkedIn Learning, whether it's Udemy, I think the big idea there is just invest in yourself.
That's right.
Something that I've been challenged with, though, I've seen a couple of memes go around about, the situation that we're in, and there's no shortage of them. A lot of people from a lot of different angles. And one of the memes that went around the time this started was someone, the meme said, well, if you come out of this quarantine time and you haven't built a bunch of skills and completed a bunch of goals, then shame on you. But I want to offer a counterpoint that I considered on that for some of us going through this quarantine time, it may be just survival, and that's okay. So, contextualize what Chris and I are saying, that while we are going to encourage growth opportunities and some resources, if you're in a place where right now you're just hanging on, surround yourself digitally with the community that can help support you through it, and that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to not be okay. And, that might be your spot right now. But if you're at a place where you go, I can do a little more than just survive right now, and I'm good there, that's great too. And I hope that some of the resources that we talk through with you might give just some prompts or maybe some affirmation to what you're already doing. Chris, are there skills that you might think would be valuable for someone to develop or maybe fine tune during this time?
It really just depends on where you're at right now, Patrick. And I think most people who are in this situation right now have to do a self-inventory and evaluate where they are right now and look at the opportunities that are presenting themselves right now. So if you're seeing on Indeed or some of these other Glassdoor and some of these other work or recruiting sites, some of the skill sets that they're needing, a lot of these organizations are in need of. I think going back to LinkedIn Learning and doing some research there and see what you can in order to perhaps maybe take a couple of the courses that are available there that will give you perhaps even a certification or enhance your skills in those areas. So if that's Microsoft Excel, if that's working in some other soft skill area or some other area that you need more help in, perhaps maybe project management or agile, something along that lines, you can get a better insight as to how those programs work, how to leverage and utilize those resources to increase your skill set, and above all, reinvent yourself so that your brand and your profile stands out from the rest of the competition that is out there.
Because this too shall pass. And
it
when it does,
shall.
We've got to be ready for what that next thing is. That strategic mindset can be so important and challenging, of course, at a time like this. But as we keep our hope for the future, but also maintain a purpose for our day-to-day life, that's a personal philosophy I've held for many, many years, that folks are fed internally, their spirit, by the hope that they move toward, but also the purpose that guides their day-to-day life. And maybe that's just the opportunity that someone needs to take right now, is to reflect on, what do they hope in? Is it something that is limited or finite or flawed even? Job security. We've learned that job security is not always as secure as we would hope, but yet we have hope that transcends that. And that's just such a beautiful thing. So being able to dig deep, and times like this draw us to do that. A couple of things that I was reminded of along the lines of what you said there, Chris, were beyond just skills of, job placement and that type of thing. Again, our focus a lot of times is helping people to build interpersonal skills. And regardless of what job someone has, it's impossible to get work done without people. And no matter what angle someone comes from and they say, no, you don't understand my job, it's all technology. Well, who made that technology? It's people.
That's right.
So at the end of the day, people become that central point that our success hinges on. Our ability to interface and interact and influence those people. Chris, I wonder if you have any thoughts or insight that you'd like to offer on some of those people-facing skills that maybe you or I run across frequently that folks would benefit from developing more.
Patrick, that's a great question, and you're right. Having and being intentional about developing your interpersonal skills is going to be critical. And I think there are a number of tools and platforms out there that can give you a better insight as to where you stand with that, whether it be using the Myers-Briggs profile, personality profile, or perhaps maybe using the Everything Disc to get a better understanding of where you're at right now and how you interact with others. I think each of those platforms, and there are a number of them, but those are the two that you and I are most familiar with and that we use on a regular basis. I think those tools lend itself to helping people not only have that greater degree of self-awareness, but it also helps them to develop a action plan moving forward, and how can they work towards creating an environment in which they can actually have more effective relationships with the people that they work with. And especially in this remote environment that many of us are in right now, it's so critical to be more intentional and deliberate in connecting with people, especially in this time of isolation where some people feel perhaps not as connected as they once were when they were in an office setting where they were able to just, get up from their desk and go talk to or speak to a coworker. And so I think it's vitally important for folks to really do that self-examination to find out where they are right now as it pertains to their interpersonal skills, and then look towards ways in which they can actually improve in those areas. And some of those tools that I mentioned, the MBTI and the Myers-Briggs profile, and perhaps the DISC, Everything DISC profile, will be an opportunity for you to not only see who you are, but also how to evaluate and connect with those folks who don't see life through the same lens as you do.
Right. That's a critical insight, is understanding the diversity of opinion and viewpoint and background, and just who God made us to be is so different. And, not just where we come from, but, even just what's hardwired into our own minds. Another assessment and supporting book that came to mind as you were talking through those is the Emotional Intelligence 2.0 book by Bradbury and Greaves, which I think anybody could pick up on Amazon for about $15 or less. That comes with an assessment. It helps us understand how we interact with people across the dimensions of our own self-awareness, our own self-emotional management, and then also understanding and recognizing the social needs and feelings of others around us, and then also managing those relationships. So those 4 dimensions really become critical, again, all the way, back to the topic here of success. How
That's
do
right.
we succeed in the workplace? It's through and with people, not using people, but connecting with people and being able to positively influence them from, a place of genuine authenticity ourselves, and then spreading that to others. Such a powerful concept. And there's a number of other, books or resources. Hey, books are pretty easy to come by. Go to thriftbooks.com. You can pick up most books for about $4.
Yes.
That's how I filled most of this bookshelf behind me. And no shame in my game here. With those books that you can read, find something that interests you. Just find something that you're passionate about. And it doesn't really matter so much what it is. If it sparks something that God put there and it feeds your soul in a way that moves you closer to that calling that he's given you, then, furlough, layoffs, COVID-19 or not, you're investing, and that's about stewardship.
That's
we
true.
talk about that a lot at CCM. How would you say that stewardship fits into that discussion, Chris?
Well, I think we have to make the most of our time, and to be good stewards of our time and investing in ourselves at this point in time is going to be critical. You have to reposition yourself to be able to walk through those doors of opportunity. One of the things that you and I have some familiarity with and have utilized to help a lot of our clients is to help them do the tip model, in which they begin the process of identifying what their top 3 talents are, what their top 3 interests are, and what are their top 3 passions. And as a result of that, they can see that intersection that comes with identifying not only their talents and their interests and their passions, but now they truly, as the author put it out there, that it's an opportunity to see what your sweet spot is. I think it's Ken Ilionosi, right?
Yeah,
Kene is the author of that book, and that book really did a lot for us as far as helping us be more direct in helping our folks understand where they are. And it's a very simple concept, yet very profound in how it's being utilized. There are folks, no matter where they are and what stage of life they're in, are still looking for that sense of purpose. As Rick Warren put it, when he put the book out, A Purpose-Driven Life, 20 some odd years ago, he said, it really does. Everybody wants to know what their purpose is. So if we can help make that connection for people and helping them understand that, you can start to move towards cultivating that talent and that gift towards something that God has placed in you. And there's opportunities out there for you to lend those gifts and talents to an organization that would love to leverage and utilize what you bring to the table. And so taking this opportunity now is going to be critical in that process of helping you reposition yourself for greater opportunities down the road.
Absolutely. That reminds me, you mentioned earlier personal branding and how we represent ourselves. I think that, the skills that we accumulate, the education we may have, the certifications we may get, what places we've worked, who we know, all of that comes together and sort of forms an image that others have of us. Do you have any personal branding tips that might help someone stand out to hiring managers? Let's say that somebody's, trying to get back into the workspace after this time of furlough. What's going to set them just that edge above?
Patrick, that's a great question. And I think one of the things that you have to look at is you have to look at what the competition is out there. Have a firm understanding of what a lot of these organizations are looking for, and then do your part to ensure that you're either seeking opportunities to cultivate that or garner those skill sets. One of the other things that I think is a part of that process that helps you do that is LinkedIn. Your LinkedIn profile, I think, speaks volumes to where you are, and the opportunity to look at other profiles and people who are in your lane and just see what they're doing, and also compare that with the demands of these organizations and what they're looking for, and then seek opportunities to actually garner or get those skill sets added into your repertoire. That's going to be critical. So doing that part, I think, will enable you to not only be in a great spot and position to be competitive for those opportunities, but it takes you to a whole nother level as far as your branding is concerned.
Yeah, great point there. That reminds me of advice that I gave to a coaching client that I spoke with just earlier today, as a matter of fact. We've, of course, the two of us have a pretty steady rotation of folks that we're actively coaching through their career paths and development. And I know this comes up in conversation often is, what are those baseline steps to just edge out on the market? And one of the things that it comes down to, it reminds me of basketball. So I grew up loving basketball. Chris, I think you enjoy basketball as well.
Yes.
And I think fundamentals are one of the things that becomes so critically important when it comes to how we present ourselves, how we grow. It's not really about there being some, secret sauce that we use that gets us ahead of the game. It's how strong is our baseline? What are the fundamentals that we're embracing and using? This is something I say often, that folks don't struggle because they don't know what to do. They're struggling because they're not doing what they know they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to just building your brand, if you act in alignment with the things that you tell yourself oh, I ought to do this. I should do this. Should is a dirty word. Lose it. That's I think an admonition that we give to folks often. Don't say you should do something. Just say, I'm going to do it. Here's when, here's how. Let's make it happen. And as someone does that, their brand is so reinforced because it is authentic.
Mhm.
It is genuine. It's not, here's what I wish I was. It's, here's who I am. And I'm confident in that. And of course, in Christ, we know that our identity is rooted in him
That's
and
right.
what he's done for us. And that's so critical. But, we are given a measure of talent, literally the parable of the talents, right? We hear that. And we know that God expects us to do something with that. And I know that we challenge ourselves daily to, use that to the fullest measure, but to hopefully, share that passion with others to do the same. So there are a lot of folks, again, kind of bringing it back full circle that are really struggling through this time. And I'm wondering, Chris, do you have any resources that you would maybe recommend to folks who are struggling with, unemployment or job loss, or even just, they're on hold indefinitely from their job until they get a green light to come back?
The only thing at this point in time, I would recommend is, for folks to continue to invest in themselves and learn something new each and every day. If that's reading the Bible, if that's reading a book from either John Maxwell or Bishop T.D. Jakes or someone along that lines, things that are going to feed you and that are going to help grow you. I think that's critical. But going back to one of the platforms that I mentioned earlier and that I'm a huge fan of is, get on LinkedIn Learning and take full advantage of that. There is so much that you can do in order to learn a new skill set that will, again, reposition you for opportunities that you may be seeking. Because at this point in time, that's what is needed. We're all having to adapt to what we're dealing with right now. And the only way we're going to be successful in that is that we embrace the change that we're in right now and recognize that this is not going to be the norm always. But we've got to come out of this on top, knowing that we have an opportunity to seek further doors that will open for us as long as we do our part to develop our skill sets in the meantime.
Absolutely. I firmly agree with that. Just taking every day and using it to the fullest, even if it is our wandering through the wilderness, right? The Israelites, that was still a preparation for them to go into the promised land. And I think we can use this as our own time to do that. And I was reminded of, some practical tools. One in particular that, of course, I hope most folks have taken advantage of if you are unemployed at the moment, and that's go to usa.gov/unemployment. And you're able to, of course, put in an official filing and, ensure that you're able to take advantage of resources that are out there that are available, through the government to aid in times like this. And, so that being one very practical, kind of a tangible resource. But I was reminded of a few things thinking about, us having this conversation, Chris, and I actually grabbed a couple of books off my bookshelf. So for some folks that are looking to build some skill, one book that I found really interesting is The Personal MBA. And this book gives a pretty in-depth survey of all the topics that are covered in a standard business type education. Obviously, in a book like this, you're not going to get, 2.5 years of school plus a thesis and all the credentials. But if you're looking for some practical skill building, there's some really good stuff there. Another one that helps folks to identify maybe moving in the direction that's going to help them. If you've got 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, then this is something that will help build some skill or some ability or some structures that should help you find success. personally, and these would transcend this time, and they should be more long term. I have a few others that I would recommend, but I'll leave it at this one, which I think is critical right now, and that's grit.
Mm.
Angela Duckworth wrote a great book that summarizes what it is that truly successful people have that sets them apart. And a pastor of mine would say, if you don't quit, you can't lose.
That's right.
Really, really powerful mindset that we can embrace, and that's really the heart of what grit is. So, from my heart to yours, I just want everyone that's listening or watching this to know that you are being prayed for, you're cared for. We hope that this discussion has added some value, and we know that there are a plethora of other resources here on this page that have been curated specifically to help you. And I know that our organization is here to help folks as well. We are happy to pray with you, member or not. Give us a call. We will talk to you. We will pray. We're here to support. So we're grateful to be able to stand in that gap for folks. Chris, did you have any concluding thoughts?
No, I don't at this time. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, for inviting me on today, Patrick. This has been great, and I hope that we can serve the people in any way possible to help them through this trying time. It's about encouraging one another through this process, and helping folks recognize and realize that they have something to offer. We just need to find the right space for them to operate in that will allow them to really, truly flourish in those areas. So let's continue to do what we can to help in any way possible.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. And it's been a pleasure getting to hang out with you and chat through this. We talk about this all the time, but being able to share this with others in a way that hopefully makes an impact. So again, feel free to reach out to us. We are grateful for you, our viewers, and those that are here checking out these resources. Thank you. And know that you are being prayed for, you're loved, and lean on us if there's anything we can do to continue supporting. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Absolutely. Take care. God bless.